recording.
All right, good evening. Welcome to the Park District regular board meeting. The date is November 16th. The time is now 6 o'clock. May we please have a call to order?
Commissioner Bendy,
Here.
Commissioner Bowe,
Here.
Commissioner Grau,
Here.
Commissioner Halting,
Here.
Commissioner Leduc,
Here.
Commissioner Matsep,
Here.
Commissioner Tunnel.
Here. Can we stand for the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Would anyone like to amend, add, or delete an item to the current agenda? Okay, is there any public comment on non-agenda items? All right. I move to approve the regular board meeting minutes from the October 19th, 2023 and November 2nd, 2023 regular board meetings.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. On to the report of park officials. The only thing I have to mention is I just want to thank fellow board members for taking time out of their schedules to meet with government HR and the key staff also for their time. Thought that process went really well. Looking forward to the next steps with government HR. So that's all I have to report. Moving to the attorney report. Thank you for that report. And on to Executive Director report, Director Montcastle.
Thank you. I do not have any general updates. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have. A lot of budget work, of course. I know that we are looking forward to presenting the operating budget tonight, answering questions, and moving forward with the process. But other than that, I don't have anything, and we'd be happy to answer any general questions I can answer or marketing and human resources questions.
Gail, I want to commend you on your clear voice when I had to listen to the recording of the meeting because I was having to listen to it because I was at a work function during the last meeting. Your voice came through.
Excellent.
I think, what is it? I think it may be because you're talking right into the microphone.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference. And I didn't know whether or not to talk about this as a public comment because I felt like I was the public watching this. But I'll bet I'm coming through really loud and clear.
You are. I can hear you.
I recommend that we all do the same sort of thing when we make comments because it really helps for sharing with the public the things that we're talking about, what we're saying. And you guys make great comments. I really liked, but I had to strain sometimes to hear. So please do that. So is that generally
I have a loud projecting voice anyways, but I do talk right. Yeah.
You do talk, right? And
Talk
that's
right
it,
when I'm
what I
talking.
remember when I listened to the
Yeah.
so.
Good.
No, but anyway, that's my question. Thank you.
Right. Thanks.
I just want to take this time under the marketing to thank Margaret and all the staff who worked on the trivia event last Saturday. It was lots of fun. Lots of staff were there. We made about $4,000, and Margaret was sick with a sick husband, and thank you for doing that, and for everyone who helped fill in for her too. And Julie did a great job. As always, you could have a second career in trivia events. Stand-up
great.
comedian, I don't know.
That's, and the money, that's a great event. And I'm sorry not to be there, but the money that is raised is wonderful for one night. It's very good.
And the trophy is now sitting in my living room.
Oh, not excellent. Congratulations.
has a fish on it.
It's amazing.
Moving on to finance, Mr. Moss.
Thank you very much. And we will have a couple of regular reports tonight. I'll turn it over to Superintendent Larson.
I've been told I need to talk directly into the microphone. 'Cause I have a quiet voice. My report for finance starts on page 14. In the interest of being brief, I'm just going to highlight two things and then ask a few of questions. The first thing is the first bullet point under finance and accounting. I mentioned that the termination of the TIF for the Dempster Street Western Avenue redevelopment project, we got notification of that. And when that happens, that property can be added back into our EVA for the property tax calculation. So I worked with the city. They were very helpful in explaining this to me and what a good estimate. Of course, it's always an estimate, but so we were able to add about $4 million back to our new property allocation, and that wound up being just over $21,000 that we can add for our property tax levy. So that is included in the budget right now. I went ahead and added that. It's included in the amount for the truth in taxation. So I just wanted to let you know.
That's awesome. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is that the car dealership?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yep.
A tip.
Is that actually in our park district?
It
Or
is.
is it Niles?
Yes.
It's
it
not
is.
Niles. Okay.
And, yeah. So
Oh.
that one's it's a smaller one.
Mm.
The larger one for Park Ridge is obviously Uptown, and that expires in 2027.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to highlight real quick is in information technology. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the sixth bullet point is about IT staff coordinating our new network cutover with Go Technology and Comcast. That did happen on the 15th, and there were a few bumps, but overall it went really well. And the IT staff and Go Technology had kind of fanned out through the district. And when there were problems, they were on top of it and solved it, and they kept us really kept us in the loop on what was happening. So that's finished. Does anyone have any questions about my report? Again, we've got a big meeting, so if you have questions, definitely I'm happy to answer them, but
Taxes trickling in.
they are not yet. I have paid my taxes early because what the county does is it's very random when they make the disbursements. So we just have to wait. I was hoping we'd see one soon, and maybe by the end of November we'll get one, and then in December we should really start seeing them. Okay, thank you.
All right. I move to approve the payment vouchers in the total amount of $1,192,485.68. Have a second?
Second?
Thank you very much. Is there any questions or discussion about the payment vouchers for last month? Nope. Okay. Mary Beth, you have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Grau,
Yes.
Commissioner Halting,
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc,
Yes.
Commissioner Matza,
Yes.
Commissioner Bendy,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll turn it over to Commissioner Leduc and Recreation.
And I will turn it over to Superintendent Armour.
Thank you. I'm not sure if I'm projecting or not. Maybe you can tell me that.
From here.
From the last meeting. I haven't been told to speak louder, but I will. Again, for the sake of time, we're keeping our reports short. We have a lot of wonderful events throughout the month of October. And of course, all of our regular activities have been reported throughout the recreation area, and we also have the camp season summary as well as the outdoor aquatics season summary included. And we have the wonderful team of our recreation managers here as well, who would be able to answer probably more specific questions than I would be able to answer. So if you have anything you'd like to ask or comment on, we'd be happy to answer them.
I would like to follow up with a comment about that trivia night, and that was great. And so was the Arts and Crafts Fair. Sarah, thank you over there. And Jenny and Molly, they were there all day doing the pumpkin bash, and then they came back for trivia. So kudos to your entire recreation staff for doing a great job for the citizens of Park Ridge.
It was a very busy day.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Overall, it looks good and things look pretty normal on pace. The one thing I noticed was there's been a bit of a dip in the gymnastics programs. Any?
Yes, our contractor, and I can jump in, I think I know the answer to this one. Our contractor has pulled back on what they're offering. They have other gyms and a gym of their own. And so we've been supplementing that with some of the other contractual programs, the Ninja Warriors. So we've been using the gymnastics studio for other programs when they haven't been using it. Anything else?
Okay, thanks for
Sure.
clarifying that.
I did have a little tiny question. I like the summer camp. They're getting trained. The staff is being trained on behavior management. Do you do that also with Beyond the Bell staff?
Yes. Similar training.
Great.
Anyone have any other questions or comments?
I guess I was looking at the camp survey results, and there were a couple camps where there were some tepid is that the right, some tepid reviews. I didn't know if you had additional survey questions that kind of shed any light on like the Teen Trailblazers camp. That was a newer one, right? Was that a newer one?
Well, I can respond. We
Yeah.
did talk about some of these summaries and notice that the ones that have the lower tepid scores, that those are off-site.
Okay.
Most of them. So we talked about more supervision from full-time staff is needed, more stop-bys, check-ins, maybe some more detailed plans.
Mm-hmm.
We also struggled with the campsite coordinator at the teen camp here.
Okay.
And so we shifted after, I think, a few weeks into the session because they were really struggling. So that really reflected in the evaluation specifically
Yeah.
for that one.
And I get that. I was a camp counselor for 12 and 13-year-olds.
Yeah,
and
you-
it's not like a ball of cherries, that's for sure. So I can understand. I was just curious if you had any insights on, so it was like that one and the Kids Quest one. The other ones look pretty good. So those are both like somewhere else.
Yes, South Park and here at O'Connor.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thanks.
Anything else?
I will say just that I do appreciate that there's a camp offered for older kids. I've heard that from multiple people, like they don't know what to do with their kind of like 12 and 13, even 14-year-olds in the summer if they're just like not quite ready to be by themselves all day long. So I do appreciate that we have those offerings. Also having a child in that same age group.
It's a tough age group to program for.
Yes,
as a-
I know. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And with that, I'll pass it on to Commissioner Bendy and Buildings and Grounds.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Leduc. All right, Superintendent Wolf, please tell us your report.
Thank you. So my report starts on page 42. I think everybody knows if you're following on Facebook, but the animals have moved over to 531. I think that's the big highlight of the day. So it was a long day yesterday, but they've made it over there. There's still a few minor things for the contractor to wrap up for us to gain occupancy, but everything's moving in the right direction there. So. The playground's also moving along over at Main Park, so things are looking good. With all the construction going on at Main Park, things are heading in the right direction. So, but again, for the interest of time this evening, if anybody has any questions on anything else in my report, I'd be happy to answer any questions or talk about anything else.
that picture the back of the building?
Mhm.
The windows, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
So pretty.
Yeah, that'll be the entrance. So like, there's a sidewalk that comes along the back. That's actually going to be the main entrance that kind of faces towards what's now the nature center, will soon now be the program center. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to have a little tour of that. That's
We're going to have
Very soon.
a,
We'll have a
yes, we
open-
will have a open house, ribbon cutting once it's
once
ready.
it's ready. Yep.
Right. But I just love those back windows. And then it makes it even more pronounced because we extended and, included the porch and then added more windows to both sides, right? The east and the south side of the building. So it's beautiful. The animals are going to have a beautiful place to be.
So hopefully staff will look at something to put on the windows to prevent bird strikes, which is a big problem with big windows like that.
Sure. Yeah.
Pretty easy to do.
get the little like decals.
Yep. Yep.
Beautiful.
All right. Anybody else? Thank you.
Adoption now? Yeah or not? All right. I move to adopt ordinance number, 23-7, an ordinance authorizing the sale of used personal property owned by the Park Ridge Park District. Can I have a second?
Second.
All right, discussion? Terry?
So we've got a laundry list this time. There's a number of things I think I might have mentioned previously, but we're getting ready for, we have other surplus items, obviously the trucks and vehicles. It's part of just, operational, we've got vehicles we're looking to replace. These are some vehicles that I mentioned at the last meeting that we're not utilizing. But in addition to that, we are going through a lot of our facilities, but specifically Oakton, and getting ready for the construction. And so we are digging deep and finding the things that have been sitting around for quite some time. And as you can see, there's some weird things in here, like the pallets of miscellaneous drop ceiling panels. No one seems to really know how long they've been there, but they're new and in a package and someone could use them, but they don't match any of the ceiling panels we have, and we don't really have a need. And so to continuously just store something forever just seems like it's makes sense for surplus. The batting cage equipment, since the batting cages are closing, and we recognize that while, the majority of the cost in that is in the concrete work and the fencing and everything, there is a value to the equipment. And so I had asked my staff to go out there and salvage what they could, and they packaged it up. And we thought, well, there might be someone out there that's interested in these parts for replacement and repair on theirs. Other things like the rowboat. Someone a number of years back had donated a rowboat to us that we've been using, and it's much lighter than the one that's just been sitting in the woods behind Oakton. So we're just looking to surplus it and see if we can get a couple of dollars for it on getting it out of our way. So that's really what this list is. It's a combination of things that, based on our current year and a few upcoming items that are on capital, and just those needs to kind of surplus those and get those out of our way while we make room for all the various different things at Oakton. So it's a kind of a combination thing, but we've been working closely with the staff over at Oakton, and just working around the facilities at the Park District. So if anybody has any questions about anything else that's on the list and the kind of things that are there, be happy to answer those questions. But
I was just curious about the palette of soap dispensers.
yeah, there's just, we've got the soap dispensers that are up on the wall that hold the Gojo, and yet they're perfectly fine. They're new, but we have them everywhere. I don't even know why we have them. So, I mean, a lot of times they are just given to you when you buy soap, but we found a pallet of them when we were uncovering things in the back of Oakton. And so I said, well, that doesn't quite fit the bill for something we can dispose of, like just, like it's not scrap metal, it's not garbage, it's functional. So we'll just put it on the list and we'll put it out there. So we'll put it up on a government auction site with no reserve. And if someone wants to pay $10 for a pallet full of them, then they'll repurpose it instead of it going to a landfill or something. So, yep.
Is that it, or is there more out there?
There will probably be more things at future meetings, but this was the list that we could, they work pretty hard, and there's a lot of things on here, but there might be some smaller bits and pieces.
There's a totem pole out there, isn't
we've got a plan for that. So we'll be reaching out to them and making sure that nobody wants anything to do with it. So, all right. Any other questions?
All right, should we do a roll call?
Commissioner Grau,
Yes.
Commissioner Halting,
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc,
Yes.
Commissioner Matza,
Yes.
Commissioner Bendy,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Turning it over to Commissioner Grau for policy.
That'll be quick. I'm going to go to H, intergovernmental, Commissioner Holting.
I do not have anything for intergovernmental. So I guess I'll move on to communications and correspondence.
There's none.
None. In the time for the presentation?
Part of the meeting always goes so fast.
And now it slows down. Does it just go on?
Okay, welcome to the second 2024 proposed budget meeting. Tonight we are going to review the magic of operations. Before we begin, we wanted to let you know that we understand that we are throwing a lot of charts at you, a lot of slides, and a lot of numbers. So we understand that it can be hard to absorb quickly. The presentation will be posted on our website. You will also have a copy, so there may be questions that you have during the week. And just like last week, feel free to email us. We'll add it to a list, and we will work on another Q&A document to send to you. Of course, if you have questions while we're here, please stop us, ask the questions. If we can't answer it here, then we will, again, put it on the list. Quickly, I'm going to review the proposed levy and budget timeline again. We talked about this at our last meeting. The timeline is designed to approve the budget as early as possible in the budget year while providing staff sufficient time in the prior year to prepare the proposed budget. In order to accomplish this, we will need direction from the board regarding any changes that we have proposed at the board meeting on December 7th, so our next board meeting. We'll list the items that have been brought to our attention for discussion and voting, and of course, any additional items that come up tonight or between now and December 7th. Specifically, we'll be looking for agreement regarding the tax levy and fee change revenues proposed employee compensation increase, and capital fund projects. Just as a reminder, our current proposal does require a truth in taxation hearing. The tax levy increase assumptions are 5%, so we will need to give public notice of that hearing. The truth in taxation resolution, which we will talk about at the end of this presentation, is required to be adopted not less than 20 days prior to the approval of the district's tax levy ordinance. So we're well within that time frame. And I will talk a little bit more about the truth in taxation hearing when we get to the end of the meeting. Just as another quick reminder, the tax levy ordinance must be filed with the county by the last day, Tuesday in December, which is December 26th. Obviously, with the holidays, we're going to get it in as soon as we can and just have it done. I'm going to start with a brief overview, very brief, of our strategic plan. The strategic plan consists of 5 core areas which help us focus our work at the Park District. For the customer core, we want to provide exceptional customer experience. Financially, we want to have good financial stability and sustainability. In the administrative core area, operational excellence. In the employee area, development and retention of employees. and the asset management core areas to focus on infrastructure and capital management. Each core area contains long-term goals, strategies to achieve these goals, and then annual tactics that are derived from each department's annual work plans. This is also part of the budget document, the proposed budget document, if you've started taking a look at that. And turn the page, I'm like, oh yeah, I have to change the slide too. At a previous board meeting, you heard the tactics for 2024 as they relate to investment in our capital assets and our employees. Throughout the presentation tonight, you'll hear about tactics as it relates to our programs and facilities. So that's really our focus this evening. A copy of the 2024 tactics are also included in the proposed budget document. Just quickly, on our website, we we have posted the proposed budget for 2024. We have posted last meeting's budget presentation. And again, we'll also post this budget presentation, obviously for your use, but of course the public also. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to present a high-level overview of the proposed budget with a focus on the most impactful operating areas that you will be learning about and providing us with direction. But before we do that, we're going to revisit capital for a minute. So I know we talked about capital at our last meeting. Since our last meeting, we have made some changes to capital in two areas that we wanted to discuss with you, make you aware of. You may have questions about this as you think about it and compare what we had last year. We're focusing on 2023 carry forwards and the Oakton budget. These changes were necessary because I got myself a little tangled up in how to think about capital. I was thinking too much like an accountant and trying to match period. You know, we like periods, we like ending dates, we like things that stop when they stop. That's how accountants work. Capital does not work that same way. It is a rolling fund. We have projects that cross years. We have things we hope will get started and don't get started till later. Weather affects it. There's just a lot more art than science in capital. And I did get tangled up. I got myself untangled thanks to the supportive staff and asking questions for a lot of people. I do apologize that that light bulb didn't go off before we had the presentation last meeting, but it did go off now, and we've made the changes that I think are appropriate. Yeah, and again, if you have questions during this as I'm going through it, please feel free to ask. We're going to start with what we call the carry forward projects. So carry forward projects are capital projects that were budgeted and approved in 1 year, but either the whole project wasn't completed or can't be completed in that same year, or partially completed and the second part needs to be moved. So the expenses can cross years. These are the projects that, the projects and partial projects that will be included in the 2024 budget. I have added them to the budget. Now, I want to be clear, these are not new projects. These projects have already been budgeted for in 2023. They've been approved by the board last year. They're just basically moving columns. So right now, as you look at the budget document, you'll see the projected area in capital. That's where these projects are currently living. They're in the projected column. We're just taking them and moving them to the budget column. So there's no effect to the fund balance. We're not adding dollars here or anything like that. We're just moving them to be more accurate from a budgetary standpoint, because next year we'll start having expenses for these projects. If we have a zero budget, even though they're safe in the fund balance, right? They're there, they haven't disappeared. But if we don't move them, we're always going to have a variance, and it's going to be hard for us to take a look at it, and for you guys too, and the auditors also. I did talk to them about this. So do you have any questions about? Okay. Thank you. And again, if you have questions later, please don't hesitate to ask. The next is our capital fund projections with Oakton. So if you remember last meeting, Oakton, the big part of Oakton, was not in here. And again, part of that was my tangled up. The other part is the numbers are so big. I kept thinking It needs to be shown in a different way. We need to do something different here. Well, the truth is, Oakton is still a capital project, just like all of our other capital projects. It's just bigger. So what we did here, I'll highlight a few things. Obviously, there's yellow highlight in there. Let's see. So this does look very different from the one we presented last meeting. We have trued up the 2023 revenue projections to include both the referendum bonds issued and the non-referendum bonds issued. Please remember that for the non-referendum bonds, which was about 6.2 million, only a portion of that was allocated for the Oakton project. The rest of it was just our normal capital funding. So you can see that number in 2023, it's highlighted in yellow, and it's about $39 million. What we've also included here is our conservative estimate of interest that will be allocated to the Oakton project. And I've sort of split this between 24 and 25, less the amount that is projected for us to earn in 2023. Interest is going to fluctuate throughout the project because interest always fluctuates. So as we go forward and create our own reporting mechanism, our cash flow, our payout schedule, and we want to do that with White before the project gets started. As we do that, we will also be looking at this, and we'll start getting a sense of where we think the interest is going to be. But for this purpose, we stayed conservative, which I think is the wise plan.
Sorry, Superintendent Larson, how conservative? What percentage did you use?
This would be, it's not a percentage.
Okay.
What we did is work with PMA. This would be the minimum that we would earn. Unless,
Based on-
remember I explained, based on our bonds, based on the bonds and the investment plan. And last meeting, if you remember, I said, this is assuming nothing terrible is going to happen. If the market turns upside down, we could go below this. But we're all pretty confident, and PMA is pretty confident that this is about, this is the minimum we could earn.
Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Matza, do you mean like what was the lowest interest rate assumed for those revenues from the bonds? Was that
Yeah.
your question?
If it's at 5 now, and I know it's probably
Yeah.
5,
Mhm.
like, did you assume that it was gonna this number to get this number? Did you assume 1, 2, or
No, it's like
something?
3.6
Okay,
something or
that-
something like
okay.
that. Sorry. Thank you for
Thank you.
clarifying. Thank you for projecting and clarifying that
Yeah,
answer.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
It helps me think through it too.
So I also wanted to let you know, under uses is the estimated annual capital expenditures. So you'll see in 2024 and 2025, those numbers have also increased because we've added the big part of the bulk of the Oakton project to those 2 years. Terry and I discussed it, and what we did for right now is about 2/3 are estimated in 2024 and 1/3 is estimated in 2025. This is only an estimate, and again, as we get rolling and we get that documentation, that tracking mechanism, we'll have a better sense of what the spend is between years. Okay, does anyone have any questions about this? I know it's hard to just look at it and think of questions, but please ask them now, or definitely if there are things in the future.
Yeah, no, I understand it, and thank you for explaining it so well. And sometimes those bills even lag longer, right? Like,
Yes.
I mean,
Yep.
it could go into 2026.
It could. Yep, absolutely. And if we see that happening, then Terry and I will work together and Gail will work together to get this more accurate.
We hope not too long, but
Yeah.
Karen, before you continue, I just sent the commissioners that are following along a new version. I had sent you the version that wasn't updated. It's very similar, but if you want to look at the new email, at the new version that I just sent, thank you.
Okay, if no one has any questions, I'll go ahead and move on. Again, I apologize that we had to go back in time and work on this, but it's more important that it's right and you understand it, so. Okay, so now we're on to the fun stuff. Now we get to talk about operations. Before we do that, I wanted to give you a brief overview of how the budget is built and what is entailed in the proposed budget document. We talked about it, and I think next year I'll actually move this to the first meeting so you guys kind of know what you're looking at before you start looking at it. But hopefully this will help answer some questions. Our budget process really begins in June with a meeting to review the budget timeline. At that point, staff begins budgeting as their schedules allow. It's a busy time for staff, so they work with their seasonal duties and start budgeting as they can. Budgeting by staff includes everything from research to analyzing the past, thinking about the future, creating current year projections, and lots and lots and lots of spreadsheets. It is detailed and focused work for all of us, and it's been really humbling my first time going through this to see how much thoughtful time and effort go into this budget preparation. So I really want to thank the peeps back here because they've worked really hard to make this a detailed and accurate and fair budget for our community. After the budget has been entered into MSI, there's a period of review and revision. And then questions are asked and answered. Sometimes things are tweaked or changes are made. And then this all happens before we're ready to present the proposed budget document to you. So I'm going to go through a few slides and just show you the different levels of detail that you have access to in the proposed budget document. This is the most detailed form, and this is a sample from our financial software, MSI. It reflects line by line input item into the budget planning model. So you can see what I chose is a salary budget from the fitness center. You can see it's got hourly rates, it's got days and hours, weeks, number of employees. It's got a description of which positions, kind of what they're doing. Sometimes the hours are there. So this is a lot of detail. It also includes the last 2 years of actuals for comparison's sake. And then for the current year, the budgeted, the 10-month actual. Now we would have 11 months of actuals, but when I printed the proposed budget, we were still in October. The projected amount, and staff also does this as they're budgeting, is figure out what's the real number for the end of the year, and then the requested budget. Then we roll up a level and we'll get the summary reports by account. So these are the accounting number, GL numbers, and then it's that detail put into one line. So there's a line for accrued comp time or clerical part-time, building attendant. These are those totals, but again, we have the 2 years prior, the budgeted, the 10 months to date, the year-end estimate, and the next year's budget. That rolls up into summary by what we call function. Summary by function is location. So you can see the last 2 slides have rolled up into the Centennial Fitness Center. This gives us only 1 year of actuals, then our year-end estimate, our budget from the prior year, the budget, and then the increase or decrease. Then we have one more level up, which is the summaries by fund. So of course, the fitness center would merge into this summary with all the other locations, Oakton, Rec Admin, the Activity Center. I don't know if everyone has started looking at the budget. I assume so, but depending on if you have a question, sometimes you're going back to the detail, sometimes you're going from the detail up, so it's made to be very flexible. Any questions about that section? Okay. So now we're going to talk about the Park District Fund overview. Since the budget controls how spending occurs throughout the district, I'd like to now review the structure of how we account for the funds. Tonight we're going to review the general fund, the recreation fund, and then the operating fund, which is the 2 of them together. At the previous board meeting, we covered the proposed levy revenues, which contribute to funding these amounts, as well as proposed spending for the capital projects fund. Tonight's presentation will include information related to any proposed fee increase. And I want to, excuse me, as a reminder, say that the Park District is fortunate to have a diversity of revenues among property taxes and fees for services. Generally speaking, the property tax levy supports general government functions, which include administrative, building and grounds, and certain overhead expenses that are not allocated to specific programs. These revenues and functions provide the community with access to amenities for which we do not charge fees. As expenses are increasing in both general and recreation funds, we feel it's important to balance revenue across both taxes and fees for services, and you'll see that as we review each fund. This next slide is also in the proposed budget. This just shows our three funds. Excuse me, I need to get some water. The general fund, the special revenue fund, and the capital projects fund. The light blue areas are the taxing funds. So these are the funds that we specifically have for levying our property taxes. The pretty pink ones are the cost center funds, cost center locations, sorry. The capital fund does not have a dedicated tax levy. The tax levy for limited bonds in the general fund provides for the principal and interest payments for bond issues, and the proceeds from these bonds are recorded in the capital fund. So if you'll see the bond debt service, it's under the general fund, but that's where we levy for our interest payments and paying back the bonds. This has a lot of numbers on it, so I'll go through a few highlights. This may be another one that you want to review after and have questions. This is the proposed 2024 budget in very simplified summary form for all three funds. So you can see general, recreation, capital, and then the total. The capital fund year-end estimate shows a large net positive estimate for 2023. This is due to the bond revenue that's included in the 2023 capital projections. So again, this includes the revenue we received in 2023. So that's why that looks so high. However, this revenue is not matched with the expense of Oakton because that project will not break ground until 2024. So this is why accountants, why I freaked out, right? They don't match. Revenue should match expenses. I shouldn't have said freak out. Sorry. I didn't freak out. I calmly dealt with it. So the revenue is high and the expenses are low, and the fund balance looks quite high, as you can see in 2023. The negative net in the general fund is balanced against the positive net in the recreation fund and results in our estimated transfer to capital of about $800,000. That's what we're projecting this year. I know we talked about that at the last meeting also. In 2024, the general fund has a net negative that is just slightly higher than the amount of net positive in the recreation fund. The 2024 budget varies from the 2023 budget actuals due to the closure of Oakton. I know we've talked about that, and we will talk about it later. Revenue and expenses were decreased for that entire facility. In 2024, the 2024 budget for capital, you'll notice that the expenses are quite high and lead to a high negative net amount, and that's because we're spending everything, right? So we're going to draw down that fund balance, which already includes the revenue from the bonds. We're going to draw down the expenses we start Oakton. Does anyone have any questions about this? Yes.
I do. So this would show we're net loss of 20,000, but we have a safety.
Correct.
That's 500,000.
It's 500, and then we have another one. I was just working on this spreadsheet today of like 282. It's called like a working safety. I'm not quite sure what it is. I think it was meant to be originally sort of like one average payroll. So it's really we set aside about almost $800,000.
I think the 500,000 was that we would have to
Like
approve.
emergency.
We would have to approve
Yep.
using that, and the other is you could use it, right? Kind of. Okay.
Thanks for explaining
I
that.
don't
I'll make a
know.
note.
That's how I've looked at it, but I didn't make the rule, so.
Yeah. Any questions about this? Again, as you look at it, you may have more, so please feel free to reach out about this.
But I just think it's good for all of us to know that money is there.
Yes. Yep.
Operating.
Yep, it is.
And then, Karen, you're going to mention the balance too, right? It's at the end of the day, we're at 18 million.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yep. And that's all three funds. So when you total them together, we're going to pull them apart for a little bit. It's going to get wacky. Before we do that, though, I wanted to talk about some 2024 budget expense increases. We've highlighted some of these major areas of expense increases compared to the 2023 budget related to labor costs. We've covered some of this in our last meeting, but we included it here again because of the difficult labor market, and it's been one of our biggest challenges as we've been recovering over the past year. And the increases reflect the extent that retaining and recruiting high quality staff is a priority for the district in the 2024 budget, just like it always is. As a reminder, the full-time and part-time merit increase are both estimated using a 4% performance-based merit pool. And I did make a note here, unlike last year, that there are no new full-time positions budgeted in 2024. So these are just a couple highlights. If you have any questions about this, let me know. Okay, this chart includes all funds, budgeted revenues, and funding sources by type, excluding bond proceeds. So this chart highlights the diversified revenue sources that I mentioned earlier, comparing the 2024 budget to the 2023 budget. The 2024 budget includes the tax levy for debt services, whereas that was not budgeted for in 2023. So if you remember, it was a timing issue with when the board approved the budget last year. So we didn't know if we were going to have the money for the referendum. We didn't know how the bond was closing. So, and I didn't participate, but at some point a decision was made not to include the bond proceeds in the budget last year. So that's why it looks a little different. Total budgeted revenues are expected to increase by about 16% in total. In the 2024 budget, approximately 49% of the district's non-capital revenues are budgeted from taxes. And remember, this includes the levy for debt service. So that debt service levy is in here. While about 43% comes from fees, with grants, donations, and miscellaneous revenues such as interest expense, liquor permit fees making up the remaining. In 2023, about 49% came from fees, while taxes made up about 42%. So one thing to remember is that this is budgeted, not actual, because actually in 2023, because once the bond closed, we did get the county, and Dirk, you may have to step in, but I think I've got this right. The county then, we prepare a levy ordinance as part of the bond closure, so we are actually getting funds to pay our debt service this year. It's just it wasn't budgeted for. But the county knows that we're supposed to get it, so. Okay. Woohoo! Mic drop, I'm done. Yes, yes. But in general. Does anyone need a few more minutes to look at this?
I have a dumb question. What's the orange miscellaneous again?
So miscellaneous is interest. Can be things like liquor payments. Sometimes it can be like Home Depot rebate. Just
Soap, selling soap containers.
selling soap containers. Yep, exactly. Yep, the rowboat. Yeah. Yeah, and if you want, well, that's again, that's 2024 budget, which includes more interest, right? Because we're earning more interest. Yeah.
More interest than soap containers.
More interest than rowboats. Yes.
I do have a question. So looking at the shift in fees, the split goes higher to the tax burden. I'm just assuming that has the impact with the lost revenue at Oakton. Is that why that jumps?
That's
bonds.
Yeah, that's part of it, but it's also the bonds.
Okay.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So the bonds are counted as taxes.
Yes. Yep. They are counted as taxes in this. What we're levying for the bonds. This is another chart. It might be a little hard to see if you're looking at the screen, but this further details how the revenues break down. This chart depicts how the recreation fees and charges are distributed across the many activities we offer. As you can see, the largest portion of after property taxes are attributable to our recreation programs. This does not include bond proceeds. There are no bond proceeds in 2024 because we will not be having a bond offering. And then same format, but going to expenses now. So the 2024 expenses look probably different than they have in prior years due to the capital spending planned in 2024. So you can see that's a big part of our pie is the capital. So we're in these, the last chart and this chart, this is all the funds. So it's general, recreation, and capital. This also, in addition to Oakton, it also includes the granted projects at Hinckley and South Park, which are large projects for us. The next largest expense is general government spending, which includes administration and park service expenses. Okay, I'll move on. We're going to pull apart the funds now. So we're going to start with the accounting fund structure and talk about the general fund. So keep in mind that the next few slides are for the general fund only. We tend to look at things all together in our board reports and things like that, but we're going to pull them apart for a little bit. After this presentation, Terry's actually going to highlight the park services area a little bit more because it's such a large portion of our spending in this. So this is general fund revenue versus expense. The blue is the general fund revenue. The orange is the general fund expense. Revenues are depicted, oh, I just said that, didn't I? This slide shows the general fund historical revenues compared to expenses for the past 5 years, our estimated 2023 performance, and our proposed 2024 budget. When comparing revenue and expenses, again, general fund only, 2018 through 2022 resulted in a surplus. 2023 estimated year-end expenses are projected to be slightly higher than revenue by about $173,000. And again, these are projected, right? So we're doing the best we can to see what we can, what's happening at the end of the year. You'll notice that there is a very large surplus in 2020, and that's due to the expense control measures that we put in place to offset the drastic reduction in revenue and recreation. In 2024, in the 2024 budget, there's a variance of expenses over revenues of about $292,000. And again, general fund only. So when you hear that, you know, that's just looking at one piece of it, but we wanted to pull them apart to give you an idea of how each fund is looking. Okay, now we're going to look at the general fund balance. This chart shows the bottom line of the general fund balance compared to the district's fund balance retention level. So the district has adopted a fund balance policy which requires that the operating fund maintain a fund balance which is a minimum of 2 months or 17% and a maximum of 4 months or 33% of expenditures. And Commissioner Grau, that's after we have that savings money, the 500 plus the 282. So that's taken out. Does that make sense? Like we're always going to have that. It's not.
It's not calculated in this percent.
Right, because we consider it like
Can't
we can't touch it.
Oh, that's what I thought those $2 amounts were.
Well, they are. We have several safety nets. But those are safety nets, not the fund balance. What I'm trying to say is that those are for emergency use only. Correct.
Exactly.
Correct. It's like not for use, if that makes sense, because we don't.
Restricted.
It's there.
It's our own way of restricting it, right?
Yeah.
But what is the safety net?
It's 500 of that.
500,000.
Right. The 500.
Okay, but I don't understand.
500
500 is not in in the 2 to 4 months?
Well, exactly. So it's 2 months of 17%, and then we also have the 500 and the 282. Does,
Okay.
So the 500 is like a blanket sending underneath all of these.
correct.
Yes.
invisible
Yes.
to all.
Yes.
The 500?
Am I hoping?
500
I
is?
don't know.
Uh-huh.
Oh, the 500 is the.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
So
There's
I
like,
understand.
there's like a $500,000
sense to
like
me.
Okay.
the
I thought it was
mattress.
Invisible, right,
Yeah.
under the
Pretend it
mattress.
exists. We pretend it doesn't exist unless
Yeah.
there's an emergency.
But we just talked about it.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, I was trying to clarify and I muddled. I'm sorry.
That was started years ago when the district, I would assume, it was started, I think it was, well, I don't know when, but before I came here, but I think it was when the district wasn't issuing as much debt to cover capital, right? So there was more emergency type things happening, so.
So I just wanted to also reiterate for the next slides when we talk about recreation, our fund balance policy is the same for every fund. So it's always going to be 2 months or 17% at a minimum, a maximum of 4 months or 33%.
Superintendent Larson.
Mhm.
So if it goes over, that's when there's fund transfers.
Right. Then we can draw it
Draw down.
down.
So when-
Exactly.
When it's over that 33%.
Correct. And you'll see that in recreation.
What happens when it goes below?
Well, then we have to worry and look at then I calmly handle the situation and no, but then because how we really look at this, it's a little like we're pulling it apart now for you so you can see them separate, but we really look at them together. So if
And the
one
total
goes
goes-
under, which you'll see, this is quite low
Total
compared,
of all the funds.
both of them.
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll get to that. There is an operating slide that you'll see that. So this shows the percentage depicted by the orange line compared to the fund balance in the general fund, which is the blue line. So the blue bar is the general fund balance. The orange line is the fund balance as a percentage of expenses. So our intention is always to maintain a stable level of around 25% or 3 months of expenditures. Remember, our high is 4 months, our low is 2, 3 months is right in the middle. However, due to the uncertainty surrounding the pandemic, there were no transfers of excess fund balance to capital in 2019. And the 2024 budget, and then when we felt more stable, we could draw that down. You'll see that for the general fund, the fund balance is projected to reach about 18% in 2024, which is near the minimum of 2 months expenditures. So this is something obviously we'll all be watching. And then you'll see what's happening in recreation and why we feel comfortable in terms of operating because we put the two funds together. And now we're going to quickly go to operating. These are our cost centers. The special revenue fund includes the recreation taxing fund as well as the various cost centers under which do not rely on the tax levy. So the pink cost centers are fee-based. We also have the museum fund, you'll see, which is basically Wildwood, and then the special recreation taxing fund for activities related to the Maine Niles Association of Special Recreation. So that's where we levy for any expenses we have from Manassar. So this is the same type of bar chart comparing revenue and expenses, but again, only in the recreation fund. You'll see here the drastic reduction in revenues in 2020 due to the pandemic, and then the sort of build up in 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. In 2024, we are budgeting for very slight revenue growth due to the closure of Oakton. So you'll see that looks closer to our expenses than is normal in prior years. Then here's the other fund balance report, again, just for recreation or special revenue. The fund balance retention level is the same as the general fund, and even with the increased expenses in 2023 and projected in 2023 and in the 2024 budget, we will still be above our maximum of 4 months or 33% for expenditures. And the next few slides are about operating, so you'll see them put together. And here we go to operating. So the operating fund, when we talk about operating, it's the general fund, the special revenue or recreation fund. It does not include capital, and it doesn't include any debt service. So it's literally our operations. I wanted to do a quick slide showing you the 2024 operating fund expense categories. So this shows the various categories. Full-time salaries and wages and employee benefits make up about 42% of the operating fund expenditures. And then if we add part-time salaries and wages and program instructors to this amount, we get about 66% of operating expenses. Again, operating, general, and recreation. This chart, you'll see how historically, pre-pandemic, our operating fund revenue has exceeded expenses. Revenue is blue, and the expense is the red color. As a reminder, in 2019, the revenue in excess of expenses of about $1 million was not transferred to capital because of the insecure time we were in, and we didn't know what was going to happen in the future. So that never was transferred to capital. You can see in the deficit in 2020 where the revenues are slightly lower than expenses. You can also see the recovery again in 2021, 2022, and 2023. So revenue is again higher than expenses. In 2024, it's more even. The 2023 estimate shows that a surplus is expected, about $800,000. Which is planned to be transferred to the capital fund to continue the district's investment in its assets. And the 2024 budget shows revenue just over expenses with about $122,000 available to transfer to the capital fund. So that's the green line, is sort of what is available to transfer and what has been available to transfer historically. Okay, just a few more, my many charts. Of course.
So when I first looked at the budget, I thought you would say you were transferring 100,000. So you think you could, but we're not budgeting for it.
We can put it into the budget, absolutely. We just kind of left it as a net right now, so it was separated out. But yes, that would be what our available to transfer to capital would be.
Okay.
So that's easy to, if we want to put that in the budget as available to transfer, that would be easy to do.
Or you could just do it when it shows up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so as I promised, we're now going to put the two funds back together. So that's our operating fund. And you'll see that this has remained historically really stable. The 2019 increase in fund balance helped absorb the impact of the 2020 deficit due to the pandemic, and the retention level remained higher in 2021 as we began to recover. And in 2022, projected 2023, and 2024, even with the Oakton closure, the fund balance retention levels remain stable and consistent. The 2023 projected fund balance as a percentage of expense is 41.1%, so that's what we're projecting in 2023, and in 2024 it declines just a little bit to 39.5%. So you can see with everything we've added to the budget, we are still over our 4-month maximum. Okay, before I run away and hide, I'm going to pass it over to Terry. Does anyone have any questions before I sit down?
So I think Brian asked this earlier, or maybe I'm confused, but I thought in the past we did transfer money that was over the percentage. we're not transferring money that's over the minimum.
We can, we
maximum.
just want to then start drawing it down, right? So like we could have over 44, but it's, I'm sorry, 33%, right? And we're projected to in 2023 and 2024. So that means we could draw it down, right? Transfer more to capital
Could.
to draw,
Could.
we could.
Okay, so
Yes.
we don't, we could. I mean, I mean, it's not a thing you have to do.
No, you don't have to, although our fund balance policy says that's the maximum. Now, obviously, during the pandemic, there was a real reason for leaving it higher because, we didn't know what the future was going to bring. This is something we work on with the auditors at the end of the year. Once all of the financials are done and ready to go and we see really where things are, then we talk to them. It would be a decision with Gail, the superintendents, of what we
And where do we transfer it to? Capital?
capital.
And then the rest goes to the fund balance,
Mm-hmm.
This is the fund balance.
above the red line. Correct, Karen?
The red line is the fund balance percentage of expenses.
Right. So if there's excess, we make a decision of what to transfer over that, and then the rest would go into, like if there's excess of that, it goes into the fund balance.
It is the fund balance that we're transferring.
Right, but not always the whole, I mean, we have a fund balance of $18 million, right? So,
Right, we're not transferring the
We don't-
whole fund balance.
no.
We're transferring the, right,
Yeah,
to the 33%.
to the 33%,
Yeah.
sorry.
You transfer, so you get to 33, but you move the money to capital.
To capital, yes, exactly. Okay, Terry.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to cover park services, which is buried within the general fund. Park services does cover the majority of our non-capital expenses that are incurred by the Buildings and Grounds Department. As you can see here from this chart, that there's a proposed increase of approximately $20,000 over the 2023 budget for the 2024 budget. I do also want to note that there are many other accounts throughout the various facilities in the district that we do have expenses accounted for, and that my team does work with the managers in the rec department to plan for and budget those things, and those are carried within the budgets that April and her team will be going over tonight. It should also be noted that the Park Services budget includes all budget expenses or all building expenses for Wohlers Hall, Hockey, O'Connor, the Hinckley Maintenance Garage, and South Park, as well as certain building expenses for Main Park and the Activity Center.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, are you assuming you're gonna gain money from Oakton then? Because I mean, you're not growing by inflation with $20,000. So,
Oh, for our expenses? Like, why are we having more expenses?
no.
Or why am
are
I
you
only having,
budgeting for 20,000
why am I only having 20?
when all your staff is getting?
Sure. We'll cover
Raises.
that. We'll
Okay.
cover that in the next
Okay.
slide. I would say, and so in general, though, we do have our highlights here are that we do have some areas that we are definitely increasing for raises and everything. But what we did is we went through and made adjustments and found cost savings in places that we haven't been traditionally spending the money. And we've been tracking the budgets back, obviously, many years. And so I've got, our tracking goes back. I think we're looking, 2015 and averaging out over all those years. Certain areas for, a good example would be like tennis court repairs for maintenance and repair. Well, we've gone through a program where we've been kind of replacing and rebuilding, so I don't need to budget money for crack repair anymore. We don't need net and post as much as we do because we've just enhanced all them. So we reduced that overall budget request because we're just not seeing those expenses. Similarly with playgrounds, we've seen as we've been increasing our replacement of them, the needs for repair parts have been diminishing. we're using the money to replace wood chips and mulch and other things like that. But overall, when we look at the trends in that budget, it's just not as high as what we're budgeting, and so we're lowering those budgets down. So
And also the the full-time salaries for Terry's department are not all in this budget,
not all of them, but
right?
the
They're
majority
split between, there's some in the rec fund, there's some in the general admin fund for Fund 11, so they're not all in
Yeah.
this bucket of money you're seeing right here.
So the capital expenses we've been making are paying off in operational costs.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, I mean, I would say to some degree that is absolutely true.
There's always something, though.
No.
Yes.
So some of the few highlights, though, that I do want to point out that were, larger impacts overall to the budget. One of them is overtime. We did see in 2020 and 2021 a decline in overtime for obvious reasons with the pandemic. In 2022, we did see overtime climb back to where we were pre-pandemic. But we did have obviously a lot of staffing challenges that year. This year in 2023, we're pretty much around that same level. And what we've come to realize is that it really, when we get into some of those overtime situations, it's really spread out, and quite often those overtime situations require someone that has, like, it's a skilled maintenance kind of a thing or a skilled labor. So it's not easily replaceable by like a part-time staff or unskilled staff. So this is one of those things, again, just looking over time and even adjusting for inflationary, it's kind of tracking where it's been over the course of time, and it's relatively consistent. So we had decreased it and left it lower this year, hoping that we could have kind of a long-term, savings realized in this area, but it just doesn't seem realistic. So we're bringing it back up to where it has been. Additionally, for part-time wages, one of the items that had an increase in this area for us was an adjustment to the actual cost for hiring the sustainability position over what was budgeted. And then in addition, we're hiring two additional seasonal staff than what we had last year at about $8,400. We're budgeting $8,400 each for them to be added into the landscape crew to kind of help manage the overall landscaping around the park district. The last item here is reducing contractual services. And that seems like a weird thing because I'm going to follow that up by saying, but we're going to increase our contractual services for landscape maintenance. But as we went into it last year for contractual landscape services for our non-native areas, we had used the model for the facilities and the properties here at Prospect and Centennial as our model of how to budget for it. And so we had put that budget in. We had budgeted the dollars that we had used and had available from the reduction of seasonal staff to fund this area. When we went out to bid, it included a cost for having the parks and all the flower beds, landscape beds mulched. When we look back at it, and we took that part of the bid, when we look back at it, the higher, more expensive part of that bid was actually having them mulch that. But when we looked at some of the other bids, their portion for mulching was much lower. So what we did is we kind of adjusted it so that going forward next year, we're actually planning on having more frequent visits. And so that in April, May, and October, they'll come every 2 weeks when the weed pressure is not so bad. But then in June, July, August, and September, they'll be here weekly. We increased the cost that we would pay on a weekly basis, so per visit, so we think that'll work to our advantage. But we've eliminated the cost for the mulching, because by the time that was actually accomplished this year, it was done pretty late in the season. And so we felt like that's something we could afford to pass on for next year. But if, we felt like there was a need and we got further into the season and we felt like that was the budgets were doing well, we could always revisit that, or we'll recapture that idea again in 2025. We did additionally budget money so that they would have a spring cleanup and a fall cleanup. So overall, while we're increasing the service level with that service, and we will have to go out to bid because we're completely changing the structure of this program. So while we're overall increasing that, the budget that we had carried this year, was a lot more than what we had actually needed. So the budget line item in this area is decreasing by a pretty significant number. So, one other thing that we did want to mention was the Oakton facility maintenance staff that does currently work full-time over at Oakton. When that project gets started at the end of February, beginning of March, they will be transferring over to report at the Hinckley Garage. Their role will be kind of working amongst the other facility staff that go around the district, assisting us with all the other work orders and preventative maintenance that we have around the district, as well as, also be putting a helping hand on getting the pools open for the season. But in addition to that, we always are challenged with coverage during staff vacations and things like that, and that'll help add a little bit of ease for that as well. So we really hope that this is going to reduce the burden on an already, very burdened group of staff, especially in the summer and spring and fall months. But so we have plenty for him to do, and we won't have to put some of these work orders that kind of have to sometimes sit and get, pushed to the back burner. We'll be able to prioritize those a little differently and bring up to the front, having that extra staff member. There are a few other expenses that are across the district that are not necessarily budgeted here, but are kind of baked into this budget a little bit, as well as all the different budgets that April's going to talk about that I just wanted to touch on briefly. We are planning on including roof maintenance at all of our buildings next year. This is at a cost of about $9,300. This is district-wide. This includes inspections and minor repairs. It's a very proactive versus reactive approach. It's definitely more efficient, and it also has a very big safety component because it eliminates a level of risk for us to have to send staff up on the roof. The other item that I just wanted to touch on briefly was the idea of HVAC maintenance. We're entering into a preventative maintenance contract or planning on entering into an HVAC contract for a part of the year next year, just due to the overall expense. The overall expense is about $28,000, but it actually has a budget impact of only $10,000 across the district because it has an offsetting cost of air filters and things like that that we would not have to purchase. It also is going to reduce, we feel like, the number of call outs and emergency calls and repairs that we're going to have because we're going to be more efficiently managing and maintaining our HVAC equipment. And in addition to all of that, because we'll be in a service agreement with this contractor, our cost per hour for the work that they do have to do will be reduced by about 25% per hour. So we felt like this was a good path forward. We think it's a good model to start working with a little bit next year, and something that'll become even more important most likely when we get Oakton opened up. And this puts us in a position where we can have certified HVAC technicians working on and doing the preventative maintenance on a schedule that takes that off of our staff's list of things to do, puts them in those positions, and helps us be able to accommodate all the other things. So it's a minor impact this year or going into 2024, but it was just something I wanted to mention because those costs were looked at per unit across the district and spread out to the various different locations where they're at. And so they're realized in all the different budgets that April will be talking about in a little bit. So unlike last week, I have very little to cover this week, and this is my only slide. So if anybody has any questions of me, this would be a great time to ask that. Otherwise, I'm going to sit down and let April do the talking.
Margaret.
Oh, that's right. It's Margaret's next. I'm sorry. All right.
I have a quick question, Terry.
Yeah.
You mentioned part of the part-time wages increasing was for the sustainability person.
Yes.
So what's the difference? That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
First
So
of all.
it was just, last year going into this process, as you recall, it was kind of during this time of year, the board's request was, can you put this lump sum of money into the budget? And so when we made the hire for the position, and then we looked at the number of hours that we want to have available for Lauren to work, there was just a difference there. And so I just had to make that, that difference up.
You thought you would? Is that?
I would have, well, so when we went into this, we didn't really budget a number of specific hours.
Okay.
it was just, here's a dollar amount, right? And so we hired her, and so we didn't really even have we had kind of a starting target of where to look at and what to think about. We knew it was a part-time position. It is a part-time IMRF position. So what we did was we were budgeting for 1,250 hours a year, and then taking what her current salary is, and then anticipating a 4% increase like we do for everyone else's. And it just happened to be more than what we had budgeted as a line item for that last year. So
Okay.
it was just it's a smaller, it's not a huge amount, but it was enough that it made a difference.
But you're not increasing her hours.
I'm not increasing
Right,
her.
that was the
hours.
question, I think, yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. And I will turn it over to Margaret now.
Thank you, Terry. Marketing is budgeted for in the recreation administration account. So I usually jump in at this point of the presentation before handing it over to April, who'll go over the rest of the recreation budget. In addition to the marketing activities being budgeted for in the specific facilities budget, I budget a handful of accounts that do sit there in the rec admin account. The main story to remember is there are no significant changes to the budget in my area for next year. But I always like to share something with the board so that we have planned for the upcoming year, even if it doesn't have a large financial impact. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this new software we're going to incorporate, which is called Statusfy. Statusfy used to be branded as Rainout Line. You'll see many other districts that use it. I did a screenshot on the bottom there from Buffalo Grove Park District. There's a number of districts that use it though, and they rebranded to Statusfy to be more encompassing of their scope since they started. This is used for facilities and field closure information. We would embed it into our website where the current facility closing page is, which is the top screenshot. That's what our current website looks like. It will have a dial-in number also with extensions for multiple locations and also a mobile app. And then there will also be the ability to send out texts and emails. So the patron would sign up for either text alerts or email alerts also if they wish, or they could go to our website and look at it. It can also have multiple extensions, which means the patrons can easily get to the information that's important to them. Each extension can be a field, a facility, an event, or whatever would make sense for our organization. For example, one extension could be adult softball. So somebody could go right to adult softball. And then also on the back end, what that means is we could have multiple users and we can restrict their permissions to that specific extension. So this way, those updates would happen more frequently, and they could also do them via the website or an app too. So they don't have to log into our website to do it, which is a little cumbersome on the back end of ours. That means that information goes out quicker and more efficiently to patrons, and it will also eliminate us using X, formerly Twitter, for the pool status updates. It'll all be done through this. I have a budgeted for the most robust version of the software, which is $750 a year. We haven't met as a group yet to determine how many users we need and how many admins. There's a possibility we could even have one of the smaller packages and still make it work to meet our needs. So that is Statusfy. The other thing I wanted to talk about also is next year, one of our marketing tactics is to develop a sponsorship packet related to the Oakton project and to start to secure those sponsorships. However, the revenue associated with those sponsorships would not be realized till 2025 when the facility opens. So it really doesn't have a budget impact for next year, but it'll be a marketing tactic that we're working on. That's all I have, unless you guys have any questions for marketing.
So if someone writes you $1 million check,
Oh, we'll take it.
We
We'll
won't
take
cash
it.
In 2024.
We'll have a better fund balance.
Yeah, the orange.
Right. Right. We will always take it.
Yes.
We just didn't budget for it. Okay, I'm going to turn over to April.
Thank you, Margaret. First, since we have our managers here, I'd like to introduce the team. You all may know all of them, but they're the ones, along with their individual team members, that put all that detail and research into one of the slides that Karen showed that has, line by line, hour by hour. So I want to make sure they're recognized for all their work. And just so, in case you haven't met them, we have Brent Dolan, and he's our Oakton Facilities Manager. And we have Julie Grieve. She is at Main Park and oversees our recreation programs as well as Wildwood. Ethan Williams, who oversees our aquatics programs, both indoor and outdoor. Sarah Chupik, who oversees the Activity Center and STAR programs. And Justin Schuring, who oversees the Fitness Center. Wave. So thank you all. They can also assist in answering any specific questions this evening. So I'd like to first provide just a little bit of information about the work that they do behind the scenes and how we get to the operational budget summaries that you will see next. So as already mentioned, the direction for budgeting included to increase fees up to 5% if the market can bear it, and also if it was necessary due to the minimum wage increase or other increase in expenses. So part of this team's research yearly involves looking at other park districts, kind of digging into their fees, pricing structures, and compare with ours. So they, again, analyze fee increases in conjunction with another minimum wage increase. So comparison research also involves seeking out wages in surrounding or comparable districts. As a reminder, the minimum wage is up $1 again to $14 an hour. Many positions start above minimum wage, so that's kind of the compression that we talked about as well. And it's based on longevity or additional education requirements is some of the things that we take into account when making these recommendations. Then participation is reviewed. Obviously we look at how popular things are, if things are filling up, trying to look for more space, then ultimately make a recommendation. And we go through several reviews and talk through all of these different reasons behind what is being presented. I also like to boast a little bit about some of the participation statistics, just because those are fun too. So obviously we're not done with 2023 yet, but in 2022, the district served almost 39,000 registered participants, which exceeded 2019 registrants. So, we kind of look back to that time frame, which was one of our more normal years, and over 325,000 daily users. So this doesn't include events and offerings without registration, so just people that we track. So that's, or the people that, of course, visit our parks daily. So we have a really amazing and dedicated team of individuals out there, and a lot of fun things happening as we report on each month. So we'll get started first with our overview of recreation programs. So similar to Terry's slides, we'll have kind of this overview where at the top left you'll see the year-end estimate, then moving on to compare to the 2023 budget, and then you can see it right next to what we're proposing for the 2024 budget. And then underneath we try and show just, a picture of our actual net income over the years. So we'll talk through this first slide, and then there will be a second, sometimes a third slide with some of the things, just the highlights, so we can go back and forth between the two or three. So rec programs, just so everyone has an understanding of what is in this area, it's the only area which does not reflect facility operations expenses. It's primarily a recreation program area. So this includes athletics, dance, camps, early childhood, preschool, teens, youth programs, parties, music, Beyond the Bell, and the special events, many of which are subsidized, like the concerts and movies in the park and the fireworks. So as you can see, this picture tells a great story of the way the programs continue to rebound. This year, an estimate is showing better than budget by $175,000. So a few highlights of what we are proposing in the recreation program area. We're always adding new programs to the portfolio across the board. So that's something that I think you see throughout the brochure each season. We've just highlighted a few here that will be added in this area. We'll see a new indoor volleyball league and a sign language class. So programs generally increased 5% with just a few exceptions. Our youth basketball program, we proposed a 6% increase, and this is just for the 2nd to 4th grade leagues. So overall, the leagues increased by $10. So that one was just, a little bit more with the percentage because they have a different program set up. And Taekwondo is a little bit higher at 9%. The reason behind this is that fees were not increased in 2023, so we are playing a little bit of catch up there. And also trying to align better with the fees for karate. They were kind of a little too spread out. And a few events that we did not increase, the middle school nights, the Friday Night Live, some of those events for the younger kids, nor did this budget reflect an increase in contractual programs. If we don't hear back from our contractors that they're changing their fees before we input the budget, then we don't include that in the budget, but generally we do see a fee increase from the independent contractors as well by the first of the year. Camps, of course, our plan is to continue to offer camps in the summer during the D64 summer break. So along with everything else, staff regularly evaluates and shifts based on previous year's participation. And this year is no different. And we also look at the needs of the community and the surveys. We take those into consideration as well. So based on some shifts, we're planning on accommodating more campers this summer. Shifting, we're actually proposing eliminating the 2-year-old camp. We've just seen that decline over time, and we really need the space for other age groups. And that was just, a short time frame. We'll have other classes for them, so don't be too sad. We're not going to leave them out. It's just the camp atmosphere we've seen a decline in that. And the 3- and 4-year-old camps will be separated and put into some of those classrooms that will then be vacant, and we'll offer a new 5- to 7-year-old camp. They already have the name, called Park Hoppers. And sports camps grades will shift a little bit to grades 1 to 6, and then 7th and 8th grade can join that Teen Trailblazers group. We also included an incentive program for staff to work all summer, and we hope that will help out with our Awesome August camp that we have seen larger wait lists with the last few summers. And then we have an incentive that's we also have listed some starting salaries that are higher than the minimum wage that you'll see in the last few bullet points. The starting salaries for preschool and early childhood staff, they are based on the years of experience and level of education that we mentioned earlier. Any questions about recreation programs at this point? We can always go back to that. Moving on to outdoor pools. So when you look at the actual net income, the outdoor pools have historically done well financially since the Aquatic Center reopened in 2014, and then Prospect opened in 2016, just to get a picture of when things happen there, except for 2020, of course. So prior to 2014, the outdoor pools generally operated at a loss. We had another great year for pass sales, and the increase in revenues from 2023 budget to year-end estimate is mainly attributed to an increase seen in the daily admissions with the excellent weather that we had for the majority of the season, especially the last week. It was really packed. And less expenses were experienced as well, primarily seen in part-time wages throughout all outdoor pools. There were a lot of times when there was staff not available and full-time staff were either filling in or, sometimes portions of the aquatic center had to unfortunately close. And then the large increase in expenses that you see from 2023 to 2024 is mainly due to the wage and supply increases. So as you already know, we've discussed and provided some supplemental information regarding the questions on the pool pass fees, but our proposed budget includes the 7% increase to pass fees, but does not propose increasing daily admissions. Daily fees were raised last year, and we feel like we're in a good spot with those compared to other facilities with those fees at this time. And with the proposed pool pass increase, we do still remain competitive with other surrounding district aquatic facilities with the comparable amenities. So we did provide that in an earlier email, some of the comparisons with the other districts. Additionally, the remainder of the aquatics program offerings are proposed to increase by 5%. So that includes the swim lessons and rentals. Again, to remain competitive with the other districts, the salaries for lifeguards, manager positions, and swim instructors have been raised to start above the minimum wage. We've also proposed an incentive program for the aquatic staff as well to try and retain them throughout the end of the season when we have the biggest challenge is at the end of the summer. So it's kind of a tiered approach to working the entire summer, and you get a larger incentive if you stay through the entire season. And so this program totals an additional $15,000 that we've added to the proposed budget. And we've also proposed one more lifeguard at Centennial during all open swim hours. We've definitely seen the challenges at the aquatic center with the behavior issues. So that's something that we'd like to see an additional person just to be dedicated mostly towards the behavior issues dealing with that, but also the safety issues at the facility. So this is an additional $10,400 in the proposed budget.
April, I'm curious, do you feel the incentive is actually working to keep people? I imagine end of the season, it's so hard to keep people on.
This is a new initiative, so we're hopeful. Yes.
And if nobody takes you up on it, then it still sits there. Yeah. Okay. Great idea, though.
Lastly, we did add a special event. It's hard to believe it's going to be the 10-year anniversary of the Centennial Aquatic Center renovation. So we wanted to do something to celebrate. So we included some dollars in the budget for that. And the 3 flick and floats at Hinckley, when the weather cooperated, were very successful this year. So we're going to try that again, too. One was, 40 degrees. So not the most well-attended event, but can't control the weather. So that's where we're at with the aquatic facilities. Any comments or discussion? You want me to go back to the original, back a slide, or? Moving on to the Oakton Ice Arena. As you can see, the year-end estimate compared to the 2023 budget puts the net to be slightly higher. mainly due to increased program participation, rentals, and some expenses being lower than anticipated. So it's, pretty close, but we're still seeing a better than budget year-end estimate. And I did want to jump back to 2022 just because, for me, that one really stands out, and just explain that a little bit for those who don't recall from last year. It's substantially higher due to many factors. There were a lot more ICE rentals than originally anticipated. The reduction in expenses was largely due to there's a gap in a full-time staff member, so the salary plus the associated expenses for a pretty decent portion of the year when we had a staff, our skating director, retire. And then also our utilities and bank charges were much lower. We kept the office closed the majority of 2022. We had moved everything to online, and that was still kind of working. And, we didn't really open the office until 2023. So wanted to explain that a little further, just because that, was really stood out. So in the 2024 budget, the revenue anticipate the facility opening in January and February only, with classes, rentals, and open skate as usual, but just for those few months. And the expenses in 2024 include the expenses for the building through the construction, staff salaries, insurance, and some utilities. The full-time staff and one part-time IMRF staff will be relocated to other facilities. The plan currently for the part-time IMRF staff person who will stay on board will work at Main Park or other facilities as needed. Our skating director, which we'll talk about on the next slide, we anticipate will work with our high-level skaters at another facility, and the other 2 full-time staff will be working on the Oakton project as well as other special projects. Their office location is still TBD. We'll be working on that. So just a few additional comments. Again, the budget anticipates the facility being open just in January and February. There are some recommended increases for classes and rentals during that time frame. It's slightly lower based on the market. We are a little bit high, especially on the rental rates. So we didn't want to increase those too much just for this short time frame. So we have the 4% for classes and the 1.5 to 2.5% for rentals. Staff is currently investigating and working with other rinks to secure rental space for the high-level skaters during the renovation. We want to make sure we, keep as many of our participants as we can, working with our skating director so that they'll, they don't look for other instructors. So that's been something that's Brent's been working on. And there's the few positions here that for, again, the short time that will be open that will increase above the minimum wage as listed. And again, the operations will cease at the end of February, so we won't be paying the wages past then.
So what are you going to do with your basic skaters? What's going to happen to them?
They'll have to find a new place to skate during that time frame.
Okay.
We're hoping
Mhm.
our affiliate is trying to roll out a intro hockey program, only they're not interested in doing that. And, once they come back here, they want us to take it back, but they're trying to keep the interest in hockey
Okay,
with our.
So you're new skaters. Are they going to be going like to Niles or something, or what's?
Now they're going to have to look for somewhere else.
Okay.
While Brent was researching and jump in if you want to add anything, Brent, feel free. But the time frame that we'd be looking at trying to rent is when everyone else is having their program. So nobody is interested in renting us, the prime time for us to have classes at another place when they're doing the same thing.
Okay. So they're not going to let us bring our instructors over there, basically. No. Okay.
No, the rental time for the elite skaters is kind of different, and some of the places that Brent is exploring has kind of a separate rink, so it would be, the public wouldn't necessarily be seeing that occurring.
Well, I suppose the Park Ridge residents will probably come back, but the out of town, the different suburbs ones or Chicago ones, you might lose some, I suppose, or what? Is it?
Okay,
Yeah.
it'll take some time to grow back
Yeah.
participation.
Mhm. Okay.
New skaters in the area, but there are a lot of non-residents
And-
that already
yeah.
come to the Park Ridge
Sure.
rinks.
Yeah. And is this will the ice skating be open before everything's open, like the field turf, or was that gonna be to the very end, or what's the anticipation? You don't know yet? Okay.
No,
We-
it doesn't look like it's going to be phased.
We talked about that extensively with architects, and there's several reasons. And as a matter of fact, April and I are meeting with Express tomorrow to talk through that a little bit more. But just because of the areas that they're starting with, for one example, is the detention area is right over the parking lot. So that's one of the first things they're going to do. So they really tried to phase, and it doesn't appear. But if anything changes, of course, that's something that staff will watch during the whole project, in case that anything can shift with that. But I would also say yes, they will find other places to go. We have excellent reputation with our instructors and our staff at Oakton, and a history, as we all know. And as with a new facility, people will that will be an attraction for them to come back. So
And the director, right? Our
right,
new skating director.
our skating director, right?
I feel like he's a big get, and then we'll have
Right.
a new facility, and
So,
that'll be
yeah.
something to.
And he'll continue to keep that group of elite skaters together, like April said. Get them as long as we can get the ice time. And Brent's working very hard on that.
But figure
Has some-
about 18 months or more, or 18?
It's March through the middle of August. So yeah, about 18.
Okay.
Mhm.
So right now I have ice secured at another arena for Chris to work with the high level skaters that we have. He's been building a pairs program along with a lot of our high level freestyle skaters. So right now that's secured spring, summer, fall. To your question about the skaters, learn to skate is ridiculously hard to like take registration through Park Ridge and go to another rink.
Right.
Those rinks aren't willing to do that. My previous relationship I used to run the rink at Rolling Meadows. I'm still very close with the guy that runs that place, was my assistant manager. So we've secured ice for trying to help Express, trying to help keep the hockey program together. That's our largest rental that we have at Oakton. I mean, they're bringing in $350,000, $400,000 a year. So we're working with them to try to get ice there amongst Mount Prospect. So different rinks for our affiliate, right?
Mhm.
But with Chris's program, it's easier to move that around at Rolling Meadows because they have two separate ice arenas. They're not in the same building with two sheets. They have they're about a mile and a half apart. They don't want the cross promotion with Learn to Skate. Plus, now you're talking about asking Park Ridge residents to drive to Rolling Meadows.
Yeah.
It's a 20-minute drive. It's not awful because it's out right off the highway, but it's still, they don't want that cross promotion. Niles won't do it. Franklin Park won't do it. And even if they had the biggest issue is when we're talking about ice time, they don't have those prime slots open.
Yeah.
So everything Chris is doing is either early morning or afternoon when kids are in school and there's ice availability.
And they'll travel for that.
Correct.
Right.
And the stuff that Express is trying to do to try to keep our Learn to Play hockey program going as an option is going to be at a studio rink in Glenview that's about 10 to 15 minutes north of here.
Okay.
So we're trying to keep as many groups together under, whether it's our affiliate or with Chris, so that when we do reopen, those programs will be plug and play. We are going to have to start to some degree from the bottom up with our Learn to Skate, but to the point that Chris's reputation, what he can offer with our staff, the new facility, I do believe we'll build it quickly.
Yeah.
But it's definitely going to be challenging. But we've already started the process of trying to keep as many together as we can.
Okay. Well, as long as you're up there, tell us, you're going to have an ice show?
Am I going to have
Ice show, an ice show.
Yes, the plan is
Tell
to
us
have
about
a
it.
full-fledged ice show. It would be the spring of 2026.
Is there something coming up, though, I thought, December?
So
December.
we
do
have
you
a
have?
recital this
Yeah, what do you got?
December.
Yeah,
Um,
I saw that.
It's going to be
What is that like? Is that small, something smaller or what?
much smaller.
Okay,
Much smaller.
okay.
We're doing it recital style.
Mm.
We did not have the interest based on the timing of the year.
Oh, yeah,
And when Chris
Okay.
came on board, it was just bad timing
sure.
in order to put that together.
Yeah,
And typically those shows take place in the spring.
okay.
So
Yeah, right.
so in order to get the groups together and have the practices and all that, you really need the time to do that.
Well, it's something for board members to go to, right? There you go.
Absolutely.
All right, it's always fun. Thanks.
Any other questions on the rink while I'm up? It's going to be challenging, but we're looking forward to it. So
Good luck.
Thanks, Brent.
Good luck.
Okay, moving on to the fitness center. So this year, an estimate shows the fitness center at a higher net revenue than what was budgeted this year. Much higher, in fact. We're definitely seeing more participation as well as effectively controlling expenses, so lower than budgeted. Again, just to boast a little bit about the participation and what comes through, it's very busy. In 2022, there were 166,927 visits, so it's well-used facility. The 2024 budget does anticipate an increase in membership, group fitness participation, and personal training, which we'll go into detail on the next slide. And the indoor pool and indoor swim lessons are also included as part of this facility's budget. So Ethan and Justin both contribute to this area. So the plan is to continue to focus on retention and attracting members. I think we've done a great job with that this year, obviously as shown by our financials, and to have a strong marketing initiative in place with targeted goals to keep building participation. That will promote on social media and e-member blasts as we've been doing. Continue to offer the 5-day all-access passes and open houses. The last one was very successful. We increased the budget this year for member appreciation and marketing. We had kind of cut back on that in 2023, just being conservative, because we obviously didn't know we'd have so many new members coming back. We're hopeful, and staying visible in the community by going to as many events as possible. We also had staff at almost every event throughout the community wide this year. We are proposing the annual membership fees increase by up to 5%, so that's $1 per month. And our short-term memberships are also the 5% at $15 for the 6 months. The group fitness punch pass fees and personal training fees really vary based on what package you choose. And so those vary from 5% to 8.9%. But the over 5% is only for the non-members, so it's really trying to push people towards that membership. And we're also proposing the drop-in fee to increase just by $1 per resident and non-resident. And we're still lower than many of the other facilities in the area. And again, it's to try and push towards the membership. We will see the increase in starting wages at this facility based on experience. And then also wanted to mention, just we've seen the drop-in programs expanded based on need with the popularity and need that pickleball is now offered 6 times per week, badminton 3 times per week, and the teen fitness orientations are offered 5 times per week, in addition to all of the other great programs that we have.
Will you tell me what the teen fitness orientation is? I have no idea.
That's for a new member in a certain age group. We ask that they go through an orientation of the fitness center, how to use the equipment, the rules, gym etiquette.
Good. Yep, okay, cool. Didn't know that.
Like, am I missing anything?
Didn't only remember it.
So that was, we had that several years ago and we reinitiated that after we were having so many problems with the teens that was, one of the requirements to become a member. And I think it's definitely helped. Any other questions, comments? Fitness center?
Oh, we're gonna have customer appreciation in December.
Yes.
New T-shirts, yes. Monday the 11th. I'll write it down. Tell my friends.
T-shirts. We
Thank
got
you.
some. I was just gonna say we had some sponsors.
color?
What color? I don't know what color. Green.
I'm just curious what the average mix is for the group fitness classes in terms of like members and non-members in the class. Is it dominated by members, or do you have a lot of punch pass kind of classes only?
Classes?
I'll let you answer that one.
Sorry, I'm not talking into the mic.
I would have to go back and look that up, but I believe it's near 50-50.
Okay.
We have our all access pass members and the
Right.
unlimited group fitness pass members, so they'd be included in that. And then there's the punch pass members and non-members, but I believe it's split pretty.
These, okay.
I can get back to you with the actual.
It's so I was just wondering, like ballpark, if you're pulling in a lot of potential members who are just going to classes who might make a conversion to a member. I don't need the exact, it's fine.
I think there's some that really just want the fitness classes.
I was a punch pass person for a while, and that I didn't, just was there to Zumba and mixed fit and do that sort of jazz.
Some people like to do.
Huh?
Some people just like to do classes.
Yeah, yeah.
obviously. That's why we have that. Yep.
Appointment exercise, yeah. That's what I like.
Okay, the driving range. So we've been pretty consistent here the past few years. The year-end estimate is relatively close to what we budgeted, slightly above, but also very close to where we ended in 2022. So this, of course, projects the facility to be closed in 2024 with some expenses remaining for full-time salary allocations, some utilities, and necessary contractual services for lawn care, pest services. We also have $10,000 in this area of the budget and expenses for facility improvements while we're closed. We decided it would be a good opportunity to get a few things done that we're not able to do during the busy season.
Will we have ice rink? Probably
Well,
not.
not during the construction, no.
No, January, February this year.
This year. Well, yes, this year. The batting cages were also removed from the 2024 budget as a reminder. Equipment will be going soon. Going, gone. The Centennial Activity Center. This is, of course, the home for our senior and active adult programming, as well as our STAR membership, and also home to the Brickton programs all year and the Stage School program during the school year. The center is subsidized in order to provide affordable recreation opportunities to the active adults and seniors in the community, as well as rentals for the entire community. It's a very busy rental facility. The staff and center continue to see growth in participation with creative offerings, but there's, of course, continued unavoidable operational expenses. The center membership has not gone back to the 2019 participation, but it's definitely been on the rise. And but the program participation definitely continues to see growth, including the Brickton programs. Their birthday parties and rentals have become increasingly more popular. And this definitely contributes to the year-end estimate that you will see, which is very close to budget. And we've come a long way here, as you can see, in shrinking the deficit over the years. And that's definitely, give the staff credit for their creative programs and offerings for the community.
So I want to make sure. So are the art and theater things like helping to shrink the deficit?
Yes, absolutely.
The art kids are helping to subsidize seniors. There's a certain poetry to it.
Yes, and I definitely think it's been a great partnership with Brickton, and I think it's enjoyable for the participants at the active adult participants to have the kids in the facility too. So this proposed budget proposes no increase to membership based on market. We're definitely one of the highest in the area, but also one of the most program and trip rich, I would say. Some programs will see fee increases. We didn't list them out here because it includes, trips and food and transportation. So it's in this area, it's a lot of it depends on the costs for the food and transportation, et cetera, and the rising costs. As those increase, the programs are really identified specifically to each trip, et cetera. The sponsorship program remains very popular, and staff continues to expand further as we've identified throughout some of our board reports. And the one-time learning classes are going to be offered for ages 18 and up, and hopefully have them in the evenings. This could include a garden series, birdhouse making, and the plan is to continue to offer the free gardening series in 2024 as well. Those were popular. The open house event was very successful and will be offered 2 times in 2024. And staff is going to continue the weekly e-blast to the entire database of 55 and up. It's a new initiative and has been very successful this past year. And
I always hate getting those.
Oh,
How do they know?
So we've seen a direct increase in registration after those blasts, Cindy.
I just want to know if there's going to be any talk of, dropping the age for the STAR program.
Gotta bide our time, LaDuke. Just gotta,
geez.
gotta stick in there a little while longer.
So the plan is to also expand some creative art classes and adding some exercise classes as well, and expanding the travel options based on feedback will be expanded next year as well.
Are you going to offer voting there? No? Voting? Voting? No?
It's City Hall, I think.
Yeah,
is
they're going to keep it?
plan right now.
Okay.
Well, I mean, City Hall has a much bigger room for it. I feel like it's a lot more.
Don't they give up the council rooms or something for, do they have to move it or what do they do?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, when
no,
early, for early voting, what do they do?
Early voting.
Yeah,
Thank you. For early voting, they'll move meetings and
Yeah.
they'll use council chambers. Mhm.
yeah, okay.
But it's also a precinct
Yeah,
in and of itself. So
yeah. Well, we could have done that, yeah. We could have had early and the day of, but,
the county wants a bigger room, to be honest with you, because the equipment's changed so much.
yeah.
They need the space, and the senior center didn't have it, or the
They didn't have.
activity center just didn't have a big enough room.
I believe they came and looked at the plans and it wasn't.
I remember. Yeah, it was.
It was
very
pretty
cramped.
crowded.
Oh, yes, it
Yeah,
was when they had it there.
The City Hall, as much as I liked it because I could walk to it when it was at the activity center, the room they have at at City Hall is much better.
Thanks.
Last but not least, Wildwood. So the Nature Center and the Wildwood facility is such a well-loved piece of the community, and we're thrilled to be opening the second facility, hopefully is very soon. These facilities give our team the ability to educate all ages in the community, especially the youth, on the values of nature, environment, sustainability, and to experience outdoor learning. You know, if you've ever walk by there or drive by, they're often just out and about, and the majority of the time. So Wildwood is not considered a revenue-producing facility. However, this fund does receive tax revenue through the museum levy. But it also sees the expenses from the pond and prairie, so that's a little bit different from the other facilities that we've already talked through and presented. But both of which are used for educational purposes regularly as part of the programs. Most other museums within park districts generally take a loss, and they're not as program rich as we are. So even though we're designed not to make revenue, we do see some years where we've obviously produced some revenue because of all of the programs that we offer. And then, of course, we expanded into the few classrooms at Main Park as well, which helped with that. So this proposed budget includes the operation of 2 facilities. The Nature Center which will be the new facility, which will take a while to get used to that, but we figure the Nature Center, you know, the name kind of follows the animals is what we were going with. And then the Program Center, so that one won't be open to the public as it was in the past. So that'll be for program registrants only, unless it's an event or you know, open for something that's for the public. So the expenses come along, of course, with a new facility. So the cleaning service, electricity, phone, alarm system, heating, air, etc. So we've seen the increase with the new facility in the 2024 budget. And of course, the expenses have not all yet been experienced at the new facility, which contributed towards this year-end estimate that you'll see, which is predicting better than budget. So just looking forward to the new Nature Center. The visiting hours will remain the same, and one of the benefits of being in its own dedicated facility is the Nature Nook, which is the interactive play area, will be able to remain open at all times when the animal visiting hours are in session. So previously it was closed during the summer months because we needed that for camps. So you didn't have those go hand in hand in the summer months. So with the new facility, there's definitely many unknowns. As we go through the year, we'll be closely monitoring as the year progresses, and once the facility opens, we'll have a better handle on the actual expenses, of course. So with Wildwood, we wanted to just show the board a more detailed information of just the programs, because we thought this was pretty impressive too. Of course, they're all very impressive, but just with the new facility and you know, showing a negative in the 2024 budget, we just wanted to show this portion as well to give you a better picture of the growth experience without the facility expenses attached to it. So when you look at, you know, the bottom bar chart, we've definitely seen throughout the years we've grown significantly. And 2017 was the year we expanded into Main Park, just as a reference, as you see that go up a little bit more. So the new program room at the Program Center is scheduled to open in March, so we should see even more revenue from programs in the future as we grow into these new spaces. So again, we're excited to be able to open the new Wildwood Center and adding additional program opportunities after renovating the current animal room. So that will hopefully happen early in the winter and scheduled to open in March. The new program space will offer additional early childhood with adult programs, along with expanding the nature camp. So that's along with what we talked about with the camps expanding earlier. We'll be able to expand nature camp with that additional classroom, and that's one that we regularly have long wait lists for. And then increase our early childhood programming as well. So there's just one area where there's a minor increase above the recommended 5%. The programs will increase 6%, which is really just 25 cents per child. And then again, similar to the other areas, there's some starting salary wage increases that are proposed to be higher than minimum wage. Again, and this is consistent with the other camps, and the early childhood and preschool is based on their years of experience and levels of education. So that's just the starting salaries. So that concludes the recreation department. So we'd be happy to answer any further questions about Wildwood, or we can go back to any slides, or any questions the board would like to ask. Re-review.
And I'm just excited to see what's going to happen with the new expanded Wildwood campus, because that really is like a very special gem that Park Ridge has, that, you know, not every community has this kind of offering. And I know, like, my kids went through it, especially my daughter, who started off with Nature's Terrific and went, you know, all the way through nature preschool and kindergarten capers. And now occasionally my Girl Scout troop does stuff there. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be really great to see how this continues to develop, and especially knowing that Nature Camp is definitely one of the most popular camps. This is going to be a great opportunity. So kudos to you and the staff and everybody who worked so hard on that.
Thank you. It is definitely interesting when the team reviews all the comparisons. It's very hard to do the comparisons for the Nature Center, because even the other nature centers, which, you know, in park districts, just don't have the programs that we have. So it's definitely unique, very unique.
I wanted to take a moment just to, while we have all the managers in the room, I think all the commissioners are always amazed by the programming, the dedication, the flexibility, and the hard work of all of the changes that have been happening over the past few years, and especially what we've got in store for us in the future. We're very much aware of it. We see from these great reports, and we can see the increasing numbers of people participating. So just wanted to say thank you for all of the dedication that you've shown to making the Park District a better place.
No further questions. I'm going to turn it back over to Karen to close us out here.
Okay, thank you, April. We have one more chart and then just a couple more slides. So when considering the fee increases that April has outlined, it's important to consider the impact of increasing labor costs on these decisions. We just wanted to give you one last chart to look at that compares program revenue for recreation and program instructor expense. So this is just one snapshot of one expense. It's only program instructor. And we just wanted to highlight that in the chart shows how prior to the pandemic and the minimum wage increase, which both began in 2020, or well, not began, but which we saw the effects of the pandemic and we saw the minimum wage increase in 2020. Program instructor expenses as a percentage of program revenues ranged around 33 to 35%. And then the pandemic constraint years of the rest of 2022 and 21, we had inconsistent staffing, and it was very challenging for us. And then you can see as we've started to hire staff back and add more programs, the increase in labor costs for 2023 and 2024 are growing to 36% of program revenue and 39% respectively. So we just wanted to give you that snapshot. The This is a list of some free events and activities. As you could consider determining the tax levy for 2024, it's important to consider the many activities that this revenue supports that are not fee-based. And we offer a number of free events and activities for the community, for families. We've got the concerts, the movies in the park. There's always something going on here at the Park District, which is great. And additionally, residents who don't spend money on programming still benefit from the park amenities that are free. And you can see the amazing Gaga Pit and Wildwood and a couple other snapshots. Okay, this concludes our 2024 proposed budget presentation. If you have any additional questions that you thought about along the way and would like to ask them here, obviously we're here all day to answer them. Otherwise, please reach out to us with your questions or comments as soon as possible so we can create another Q&A document and respond to them as quickly as possible. And we want to do that well before the December 7th meeting, so you're prepared to provide feedback and give us some direction on the budget. Are there any questions?
Would you send the slide that had all the free events to us?
It's all part of this.
Is it? Oh,
yep,
okay.
this part.
You'd already sent it? Oh,
Mhm.
oh, you did? Okay.
Yep.
Oh, okay, thanks.
And that's a snapshot of the free events.
That's what I want.
The upcoming ones were in our packet. The upcoming ones were the last page of your report or of the packet. Yeah. Yeah, the recital was on there, the skate
Oh.
recital.
Oh, this is a year event. No, that was the year. That was the whole year. That was the whole year thing. That's what I was talking about. Yeah,
Mhm.
the whole year. Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh.
But I think, Cindy, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're talking about like in April's monthly report, she
Yeah.
puts the free things every month, or right? Is that
When I
free
saw-
and upcoming kind of thing, right?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't know if now's, I mean, I know it's long meeting, et cetera. I did have one question about the, I think it was even in this slide, the one you fixed that had yellow on it. I had asked a question about the 300,000 expected expenses for 2026 capital asset replacement. And I think you guys said what they were, and I just wonder why that's so low compared to every other year. Maybe Terry's the best person to answer that. I mean, you told me why, but it still doesn't. I guess my question is, why is it so different than every other year? That's really my question.
Yeah, it's really actually just as simple as it laid out, nothing pre-populated in that year. So when we put in, HVAC and we say it's going to come up in another 15 years, it just so happened that not a lot landed in that year. That's the
Buy on
that's
capital.
that's a starting point. Now, as I also mentioned in the response to that, we also go through, and we always, look at the other needs and things get shifted, but we hadn't shifted anything into that
So
year.
it just happened that way.
It just happened that way. Yeah.
But typically there's additions, and
there are.
then, like you said, it shifts because we may not, like you saw that list, you don't get to everything, right?
Right.
Right.
But then the revenue shifts with that.
So it's really just that simple.
Well, it was high five figure, it was
Mhm.
however many
There-
figures.
yeah.
Yeah.
300,000.
Yeah. Trust me, it caught my attention too. So
Okay.
it looks like a wonderful year.
All that information was very helpful that you guys put together. Thank you. It was very helpful. On the question and answer.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was a team effort.
Yes.
The whole thing is a team effort.
Right.
We know that. And it's good that the team gets to participate. I know this is a long meeting for all you all, but we know that the numbers come from you, so.
So I think, as Karen said, any kind of questions, if you want to have a call with Karen or I to clarify some things, or just send us, we're gathering everything. We got a list from a commissioner right before, or was it right before the other list went out? So those are going on the next list, right? So we'll have the answers for everybody to those questions. And then and then we'll start putting them, the categories that we need to vote on, the things that we've heard about from the commissioners in terms of under those categories that Karen listed, the fees, the tax levy, the increase, the wages, and capital. So I also want to take this opportunity to thank the staff, Karen, the department heads, and of course all the managers for all your work on this budget. As Karen said, it starts in June and really just never stops, right?
It's crazy.
Yeah, so it's truly a team effort. So much appreciated. And the good news is that clock is an hour, ahead of time. So it's really not 9:20. So, but any more questions at this time? We'll take. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. I just want to make a comment too. Like, I was very impressed with the proactive work with the lack of ice and the creativity. Again, you guys are always creative, trying to figure out solutions to keep the affiliates together. So my hat's off to you guys. It's a nonstop thing. I know everybody here does. You change in a pivot, and marketing does something, recreation does something, buildings and grounds, like it's always changing. So thank you for I know you guys put a lot of time into this. Thank you for your diligence. So I move to adopt resolution number 23-6, a resolution determining the amounts of money exclusive of debt service and election cost estimated to be necessary to be raised by taxation pursuant to the proposed levy of the Park Ridge Park District for the levy year 2023.
Second.
Discussion.
So this is on page 50 of your packet. This is the Truth in Taxation Resolution. And we need to pass this resolution as informing the public of our intent to levy this amount. This is not, you're not voting on the levy yet. This is just letting everyone know that this is what we intend to levy. And this does, as I said earlier, this needs to be levied not less than 20 days prior to the adoption of the levy. The actual adoption of the tax levy will be at our December 21st meeting. We will also be required to have a truth in taxation hearing, and I will make a notice of that in the paper at that same meeting. So I don't know if anyone has any questions about this. I believe that we did this last year also. So if you have any questions, you can let me know, and Dirk can answer them for us. Okay.
Can I just make one comment? And it's about the article that was in the paper. Maybe Gail, you'd be the best person to say what parts of that were incorrectly reported in case we get questions about that. And maybe I don't know if it would impact anyone's vote.
Right.
But I mean, for example, the headline said we were asking for a 6% increase, and it's 6% overall, but it's not 6% to our homeowners. I mean,
the right, the 5% is the increase, and then the remaining amount is new property, our estimate for new property.
Mm-hmm.
So,
correct. So that
right,
adds the
so-
extra percent.
And we did point that out to them. The other thing, it sounded like it was all approved, and it's a proposed budget that it sounded like the board had approved, the budget, and it was proposed. That was another major one. And what else, Margaret? I mean, those are the two key.
Yeah, I guess the main one is we're not approving a 6% tax
Right.
increase. I mean, the money is a 6% increase, but we're limited to 5% for
CPI.
For the CPI.
Right.
That's correct.
Correct.
Can we have a Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Commissioner Halting?
Yes.
Commissioner Leduc?
Yes.
Commissioner Matza?
Yes.
Commissioner Bendy?
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe?
Yes.
Commissioner Grau,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel.
Yes. Do we have any new business this evening? Okay. I move to adjourn to closed meeting for the purpose of discussing matters pertaining to the discipline, performance, compensation, and/or dismissal of one or more specific employees of the Park District 2C1. We will reconvene to regular board meeting to take action, if any, on matters discussed in closed session.
Second.
May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Leduc,
Yes.
Commissioner Matza,
Yes.
Commissioner Bendy,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Grau,
Yes.
Commissioner Halting,
Yes.
Commissioner Tunnel.
Yes. I'll propose a 5-minute break. Between us back into open session. The time is now 8:46. The date is still November 16th, 2023. I'd like to move to adjourn the meeting of the Board of Park Commissioners. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're finished.
Say